My wife secretly embezzled $200, $0 from our joint account to fund her affair with her boss, and now she's claiming I'm the one stealing when I found out she forged my signatures to transfer the house's title. Help! I'm drowning in betrayal and legal chaos. I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this. Honestly, it feels like I've been punched in the gut so hard I can't breathe. It all started with a gut feeling, you know. That nagging suspicion that something was off, but I kept telling myself I was overthinking it. My wife, Lisa, had always been a bit of a bitch. She could be sweet when she wanted to be, but most of the time she was manipulative and controlling. Still, I never imagined she'd go this far. We'd been married for 8 years, and honestly, I thought we had a decent life. We had a house, 2 kids, a good job, and enough money to get by comfortably. But over the last few months, I noticed her acting strange, secretive texts, sneaking around her phone, canceling plans at the last minute. I'd catch her lying about where she was going or who she was talking to, but I didn't want to believe she was cheating. Maybe she was just stressed or having an affair with someone from work, I told myself. I kept telling myself that until the day I found out the truth. It all unraveled so quickly. I was sitting at my desk one evening, going through some emails, when I decided to check our joint bank account just to see if everything was in order. I'd been doing it occasionally, just to keep track of expenses. That's when I saw it, an enormous transfer of $200, $0 to an account I didn't recognize. The transfer was made just 2 days ago. My heart stopped. I clicked on the details, and that's when I saw the name, Lisa's boss, James Carter. My mind refused to process what I was seeing. I knew Lisa was ambitious, but $200, $0. That's a lot of money, and it wasn't from any of our savings or investments. It was from our joint account, which I handled. I immediately felt a cold wave of betrayal wash over me. How could she do this? I started digging deeper, looking at the account history, and that's when I noticed something. Even worse, forged signatures. Several transfers, including the transfer of our house's title, had her forging my signature. She had forged my name on legal documents, claiming I approved the transfer. I couldn't believe it. The woman I'd trusted with my life had been stealing from me all along, funding her affair with her boss, James. I felt like I'd been punched again, but this time in the chest. I was furious, hurt, and confused. How long had she been doing this? Was I blind? Did I ever really know her? I wanted to confront her immediately, but I knew I needed to gather my thoughts first. I needed proof, a plan. Because if she was willing to forge my signature and steal that kind of money, what else was she capable of? The next morning, I decided I couldn't wait any longer. I needed to see her face, hear her lie. I arranged to come home early from work. I was nervous, shaking even, but I knew I had to do this. When I walked through the door, she was in the kitchen, pretending to be busy with some groceries, but I saw the nervous flicker in her eyes. I didn't say a word. I just pulled out the printouts from the bank account and the legal documents I'd found. Her face went pale. She stammered, trying to deny everything, claiming I must be mistaken, that I was paranoid. But I was. I'd seen the evidence with my own eyes. Her excuses sounded hollow, even pathetic. She told me she needed the money for something personal, that she'd been under a lot of stress, and that James had been helping her with some investment thing. An absolute lie. She insisted she loved me, that it was all a misunderstanding, and that I was overreacting. I could see the desperation in her eyes, but I also saw the cold calculation behind her words. She was lying. She'd been lying for months. That moment hit me hard. I felt a mix of rage and heartbreak. I'd been betrayed in the worst way imaginable. I had trusted her, loved her, and she'd been sneaking around, embezzling our money, forging my signature, and sleeping with her boss. I wanted to scream, to break something, but I held it in. I knew I had to stay calm, at least for now. I needed to think about my next move. I realized that my life as I knew it was over. The woman I married, the woman I thought I knew, was a liar and a thief, and I was the one paying the price. After I confronted Lisa that day, everything changed. She tried to spin her web of lies, saying she was just stressed, that James was helping her with some investment, and that I was overreacting. She looked me straight in the eyes and told me I was paranoid, that I had no proof she'd been cheating or stealing. But I had the proof. Those bank statements, the forged signatures, the transfer records. I wasn't about to let her gaslight me into thinking I was crazy. She kept insisting she loved me, that she'd never do anything to hurt our family, but her words felt hollow. I could see the guilt behind her eyes, the way she avoided eye contact. Still, her ability to lie so effortlessly made me question everything. Was I just a fool? Had I missed the signs all along? I felt dizzy, sick to my stomach. I'd trusted her for so long, and now I was sitting here, realizing she'd been manipulating me from the start. That night I couldn't sleep. My mind kept racing. I kept replaying everything she said, every lie, every sneaky glance, every secret call she took in the bathroom. I felt betrayed on a level I'd never experienced before. How could she do this? How could she so easily betray her vows, her family, everything we built together? She was supposed to be my partner, my wife. Instead, she was a con artist, a thief, and a liar. I decided I needed a plan. I couldn't just blow up our life without thinking it through. First, I needed to document everything: printouts, bank statements, legal documents. I also contacted a lawyer the next day, explaining the situation. She initially everything, but I had the evidence, and I wasn't backing down. The lawyer told me I had grounds for a legal investigation, especially with the forged signatures and the theft of our house's title. Meanwhile, Lisa's attitude started to shift. She became more bitchy, more defensive. She accused me of ruining her reputation, claiming I was crazy and paranoid. At one point, she even said I was trying to ruin her career, that James was just a business associate, and that I was jealous. The audacity. She lied so smoothly I almost believed her for a second, but I knew better. I could see her trying to turn the tables to make me look like the bad guy. I couldn't help but feel a deep sense of sadness mixed with rage. How did I get here? I thought I knew her, but now I saw her for what she truly was: someone who would do anything for money and power, even if it meant destroying everything we had. I also felt disgusted with myself for not catching her sooner. How blind could I have been? I always thought I was careful, attentive. Turns out I was just too trusting. The worst part was the emotional toll. I felt like I was drowning in betrayal. Every time I looked at her, I saw a stranger. Every time I thought about the money, the house, the kids, everything felt like it was crumbling. I wondered if I should just walk away, start over somewhere else, or fight to get what's mine. The legal stuff was complicated, but I knew I had to stand my ground. She forged my signature, she stole from us, she lied to my face. This wasn't just about money anymore. It was about respect, trust, and my dignity. I spent the next few days gathering evidence, talking to the lawyer, trying to figure out how deep her lies went. I discovered she'd been secretly funneling money into James's account for months. The more I looked, the more I realized she'd been planning this for a long time. I also found out she had forged my signature on documents related to refinancing the house, even transferring the deed to herself. That was the moment I knew I had to act fast before she did something even more destructive. I decided I'd confront her one last time, with everything laid out on the table. But I also knew I couldn't trust her to be honest. I wanted her to admit everything voluntarily, to see her true colors. If she tried to deny or spin her way out of it, I'd have no choice but to involve the authorities. The thought of taking legal action made my stomach turn, but I couldn't let her get away with this. Not after everything she'd done. So, I prepared myself. I knew this confrontation would be intense. I was angry, hurt, and betrayed, but I also wanted the truth. I wanted to see if she'd come clean or keep hiding behind her lies. I wasn't going to let her manipulate me anymore. I promised myself that no matter what, I'd do whatever it took to get justice, whether that meant fighting for my home, my money, or my dignity. And deep down, I knew this was only the beginning of a long, messy battle. The confrontation happened like I expected: volatile, tense, and full of her spinning more lies. I laid out the evidence piece by piece. The bank statements showing the $200, $0 transfer, the forged signatures on the legal documents, the transfer of our house's title. I watched her face drain of color as I revealed each new piece. She tried to deny everything, claiming she was just trying to fix things, that James was helping her with some investment, and that I was paranoid and jealous. She looked me in the eye and said, "You're overreacting. You're making this all up. I would never do something so horrible." Her voice was trembling, but she was trying to sound confident. I could see the desperation behind her words, the attempt to manipulate the situation to her favor, but I wasn't buying it anymore. I knew she was lying, and I could see she was panicking. I felt a rage boiling inside me that I couldn't suppress. How could she sit there and lie so blatantly? After everything we'd been through, after all the years I trusted her with my life, I couldn't hold back. I told her I knew about her affair, that I knew she'd been sleeping with James for months, that she'd been stealing from us to fund her secret life. Her eyes widened and she tried to deny it, claiming I was crazy, that I was just jealous because she was successful. But I had proof: texts, photos, bank transfers. Everything pointed to her betrayal. I told her I was done. I was sick of her lies, sick of her betrayal. I told her I was going to take this to the authorities, that she'd face the consequences for forging my signature and stealing from our family. Her face twisted with anger and frustration, and she spat out, "You're ruining everything. You don't understand. James is the only one who's been there for me. He's the one who's really supporting me. You're just jealous and insecure." That was the moment I realized how deep her manipulation ran. She was trying to turn the situation around, make me feel guilty, make me question myself. But I couldn't. I knew what I'd seen, what I'd uncovered. She'd been lying, cheating, stealing, and now she was trying to gaslight me into thinking I was the problem. I told her I'd had enough. I was done listening to her lies. I told her I was calling the lawyer and the police. She snapped at me, saying I was ruining her life, that I was overreacting, that I was being unfair. She started crying, fake tears welling up in her eyes, but I saw through it. I could see the anger and desperation behind her facade. She was cornered and she knew it. The emotional toll was overwhelming. I felt like I was trapped in a nightmare, fighting to wake up. It was like everything I'd believed in was crumbling before my eyes. I'd loved her, trusted her, built a life. With her, now I was facing the reality that she'd been planning her escape, using me, betraying me, stealing from us. All I wanted was to get out of that room, to breathe, to process what had just happened, but I knew I couldn't leave her like that. Not yet. I told her I was going to make sure she paid back every cent, that she'd face the legal consequences of her actions. I also told her that I'd be fighting for full custody of the kids because I didn't trust her anymore. She yelled, called me a monster, accused me of trying to ruin her, and stormed out of the house, slamming the door behind her. I stood there, stunned, feeling a strange mix of relief and crushing sadness. Now I was left with a house full of chaos, a legal mess, and the realization that my marriage was over. I went to my lawyer the next day, handed over all the documents, and started the process of legal action. I knew it wouldn't be easy. She'd fight me, she'd lie, she'd try to manipulate the courts. But I was determined. I wanted justice, not just for the money she stole, but for the years I wasted trusting someone I thought loved me. The hardest part was knowing the betrayal wasn't just about money. It was about trust, respect, and the future I thought we had. I kept asking myself how I missed all the signs, how I was so blind. And honestly, I still feel that sting, like I was sucker punched and left to pick up the pieces of a life I thought was stable. But I also realized I couldn't stay in this nightmare forever. I had to take control, even if it meant starting all over again. The pain is raw, but I know I'll get through it. I have to. The days that followed were a whirlwind. I threw myself into the legal process, trying to get everything in order: bank records, forged signatures, the transfer of the house. Each document was a punch in the gut, a reminder of how deeply Lisa had betrayed me. I also had to deal with the emotional fallout, feelings of anger, betrayal, and a profound sense of loss. I kept replaying her lies, her fake tears, her manipulative words. It was like waking up from a nightmare I couldn't escape. Meanwhile, Lisa's attitude shifted again. She became more confrontational, more bitchy. She accused me of trying to ruin her life, of breaking up the family for no reason. She called me possessive, jealous, insecure. Her words stung, but I also saw the desperation behind her tone. She was trying to save what little she could, maybe hoping I'd back down or forgive her. But I wasn't about to let her manipulate me anymore. I knew the truth, and I was determined to see this through. One afternoon, she showed up unexpectedly at my office furious. She demanded I drop the legal action, begged me to stop ruining everything. She accused me of overreacting, of not trusting her, even though I had every reason to. I told her she had no right to be angry, that she was the one who lied and stole from us. Her face twisted in anger and she spat. "You think you're so perfect. You're just a controlling asshole who can't handle losing his wife." It was a classic Lisa move, blame shifting, projecting her faults onto me. I felt a flash of anger, but I kept my cool. I told her she needed to leave and that I'd call security if she didn't. She stormed out, slamming the door behind her, but not before throwing one last nasty remark. "You'll regret this. You're going to lose everything, your house, your kids, your reputation." I didn't respond. I just watched her walk away, feeling a strange mixture of relief and dread. I knew she was trying to threaten me, to scare me into backing off. But I also knew I couldn't let her get away with this. In the meantime, I started talking to a divorce lawyer. It was clear I couldn't stay married to someone who had betrayed me so completely. The legal battle was going to be long and messy. I knew she'd fight me on everything: custody, money, the house. But I also knew I had the evidence on my side. The forged signatures alone would make her case difficult. I was determined to fight for my rights, for my dignity, and for the future my kids and I deserved. The emotional toll was heavy. Every day felt like walking through a minefield. I'd wake up wondering if I'd missed signs, if I could have done something differently. I kept questioning myself. Was I too trusting? Was I blind to what was happening right under my nose? The guilt and the anger fought inside me, making it hard to focus. But I also knew I had to stay strong, for my own sake and for the sake of my kids. One night I sat alone in the house, staring at the empty space where Lisa used to sleep. It hit me hard, how much I'd lost, how much I'd been betrayed. I realized I'd spent years building a life with her, only to find out she'd been secretly destroying it all along. It was a bitter pill to swallow, but I also knew I couldn't let her win. I had to rebuild, to start fresh. I couldn't let her define me anymore. I reached out to a therapist to help me process everything. Talking to someone outside the chaos helped, even if just a little. I told him about the betrayal, the anger, the sadness. He told me I was doing the right thing by standing up for myself and that healing would come in time. It was a small comfort, but it helped me hold on to hope. I knew I had a long road ahead, but I was determined to get through it. I owed it to myself and my kids to come out of this stronger. Looking back, I realize I've learned a lot from this nightmare. Trust is fragile and betrayal cuts deep, but I've also learned that I can survive even the worst storms. Sometimes, you have to hit rock bottom to find your footing again. I've come to accept that I can't change what Lisa did, but I can control how I move forward. The legal fight isn't over yet, but I'm ready. I'll fight for what's mine, for my dignity, and for the future I want to build for myself and my kids. And no matter what, I refuse to let her steal my peace any longer. The legal battle dragged on longer than I expected, but I was determined to see it through. Every day, I worked with my lawyer, gathering more evidence, preparing for court, and making sure I had everything documented. The forged signatures, the transfer of the house, these were concrete proof that Lisa had deliberately betrayed me. I knew she'd attempt to spin it all, but I had the facts, and I was ready to fight for my rights. Meanwhile, Lisa's behavior grew more erratic. She would call and text incessantly, sometimes crying, sometimes yelling, trying to manipulate the situation. She accused me of trying to ruin her life, of being controlling, and insisted she was innocent. She even went as far as to claim I was the one stealing, an outright lie, but she was desperate. I blocked her number, refused to engage in her games. I knew she was trying to provoke me, to make me lose my temper, but I wouldn't give her that satisfaction. One day, she showed up at the house unannounced, furious, demanding to see the kids. I told her she wasn't welcome until the court decided, but she didn't listen. She barged in, yelling at the kids, trying to guilt-trip them into siding with her. It was disgusting. I had to call the police to get her to leave. That was the moment I realized how dangerous she'd become. She was willing to do anything to hold onto her lies and her control. The court proceedings were brutal. Lisa fought hard, trying to claim she was the victim, that I was an abusive husband who was trying to ruin her reputation. She brought fake witnesses, tried to manipulate the judge, but I had the evidence and I stayed calm. I knew if I lost my temper, I'd give her ammunition. I focused on the facts, on protecting my kids and my rights. It was exhausting, emotionally draining, but I refused to give up. Throughout this process, I also started rebuilding myself. I threw myself into work, into the gym, into spending quality time with my kids. I realized I'd been so caught up in the chaos that I forgot who I was outside of the marriage. Now I was rediscovering my strength. I became more assertive, more confident. I also started therapy seriously, working through the anger and betrayal. It was painful but necessary. I couldn't let her define my future. The financial damage was significant, but I was determined to recover. I had to sell the house, which was a huge blow, but I knew it was necessary to cut my losses. I negotiated a fair settlement, ensuring I'd get back what was legally mine, and I moved into a smaller place with the kids. It wasn't what I envisioned for my life, but it was a fresh start. I had to let go of the past to move forward. Looking back, I see how much I've grown through all this. I learned that trust can be broken, but that doesn't mean everything is lost. I also learned the importance of standing up for myself, of protecting what's mine, and of not letting someone's lies destroy me. Lisa's betrayal was a huge blow, but I refused to be a victim forever. I want my kids to see that even in the darkest moments, you can find strength. I want them to know that honesty, integrity, and resilience matter more than anything. This ordeal has changed me forever. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know I won't let her or anyone else take away my peace again. I've learned to be cautious, to trust carefully, and to value myself more. I'm still healing, still rebuilding, but I'm also stronger than I've ever been. And someday, I'll look back at this chapter of my life and see it as the moment I refused to let betrayal define me. That's the real victory. Now, looking back, I realize that this entire nightmare has reshaped me in ways I never expected. The betrayal cut so deep, but it also forced me to confront my own strength. I've learned that trust is fragile, something you have to protect fiercely, and that people can hide their true selves behind smiles and lies for years. Lisa's deception was a brutal lesson in that. Still, I refuse to let it define me or break me entirely. The court case finally wrapped up a few months ago. I got full custody of the kids, and I managed to recover most of what was stolen or transferred illegally. The house was lost, but I see that as a small price to pay for my peace of mind. The legal fight was exhausting, but it was worth every sleepless night, every argument, every painful moment. I now have a clearer view of what matters: honesty, integrity, and protecting my family from the chaos that betrayal brings. I've also come to terms with the fact that Lisa's gone. She's still trying to reach out, to manipulate, but I've blocked her completely. The trust we once had is gone forever, and I've accepted that. Holding on to anger or resentment only keeps me stuck, so I've chosen to forgive myself for not seeing her true nature sooner and to forgive her for the pain she caused. Forgiveness isn't about forgetting or excusing what happened. It's about freeing myself from the prison of anger. Today, I focus on rebuilding my life. I spend more quality time with my kids, making sure they feel loved and secure. I've started dating again, cautiously, but with more awareness of what to look out for. I've also prioritized my mental health. Therapy helped me process everything, and I've developed a stronger sense of self. I now understand that betrayal doesn't have to break you. It can make you stronger if you choose to learn from it. What I want to say to anyone reading this is simple. Trust is a gift, but it's also a risk. Be careful who you trust and don't ignore the red flags. If someone is lying, stealing, or manipulating, don't justify it or dismiss it. Stand up for yourself, protect your boundaries, and never let anyone make you feel small for seeking the truth. The pain of betrayal is brutal, but it's also a catalyst for growth if you let it be. I've come out of this ordeal with a new perspective on life. I value honesty more than ever, and I cherish the lessons learned. Lessons about resilience, about self-worth, and about the importance of protecting what's yours. I've also realized that sometimes The only way forward is to let go of what's broken and focus on building something better. The scars will stay, but they serve as a reminder. Never again will I ignore the signs. Never again will I let someone betray me without fighting back. So here I am, a bit wiser, a lot more cautious, but also more hopeful. I know life will throw more challenges my way, but I've proven I can survive the worst. I hope anyone going through something similar finds strength in their own resilience. Because, in the end, the true victory isn't avoiding betrayal. It's how you pick yourself up afterward and rebuild with integrity and courage.